Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the beautiful St. Andrew's United Church in Halifax, Nova Scotia. We're so happy you're with us here today. We're gathering here today in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded and ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are privileged to be able to gather regularly in song on lands that are more than our own, deeply rooted in First Nation traditions and a treaty of peace and friendship of which we are all a part. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work, live, meet, and especially to make music on these beautiful lands. With choral music around the globe silenced for so long, we had no idea what this season might hold. Thankfully, in Nova Scotia, we have been extremely fortunate to have a very low caseload of COVID-19, which has allowed a smaller number of our singers to continue to meet in person with safety protocols for much of this season. As everyone is aware, it is not without its challenges. Singing with masks, 6 feet distancing, and in 30-minute periods, a time that seems to fly by with the blink of an eye. However, these singers have shown positivity and a willingness to persevere, and we will just continue to do the best we can. We'd like to give a heartfelt shout out to all of our choral friends and colleagues across the globe who are also doing whatever they can within their own unique set of circumstances to keep their communities connected and the choral art form alive. VERITAS, Seeking Truth, Sharing Wisdom, was originally planned for June 2020 as a full weekend of concerts and workshops. Last November, we pivoted the program to a second iteration, a series of shorter events with live and live-streamed audience. But it was again cut short due to increased restrictions just after the first presentation with our composer, the remarkable Fran Farrell. However, we have always remained committed to giving life to the commissions of our other two composers, and so we would like to offer you now VERITAS 3.0. So VERITAS is Latin for truth. We are all searching for truth in our lives, and it seems to be increasingly hard to find as we grapple with the complex world of seen and unseen and the manipulation of reality. The purpose of the program is to shine a different light on the process of how music comes to us, and to give space for new works that so poignantly speak to this relevant topic in such a beautiful way. We have chosen to bring 3 outstanding Canadian female composers to the forefront. Through their commissions, these composers have explored this theme of truth and, reflecting how truth at the moment seems to be so open to interpretation, it has led each of them down wildly different creative paths, resulting in 3 remarkably different compositions. One of the main mandates of this project was to ensure that our composers had the opportunity to share not only their works, but their voices as well. Rarely does an audience hear directly from the creators in such detail. Over the next hour, our 2 remaining composers, Claire Saindon from Montreal, Quebec, and Carmen Braden, joining us from Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, will be speaking to different aspects of their craft, details about their compositional ideas, in addition to stories behind these wonderful new creations. Interspersed with these presentations, the choir will present a few pieces that we believe complement these commissioned works. Thank you for being with us, and we hope that you enjoy the conclusion of VERITAS, Seeking Truth, Sharing Wisdom. Claire Saindon is a Franco-Ontario composer based in Montreal. Beginning her composing journey in high school, Ms. Saindon holds a Bachelor of Music in Composition from the Schulich School of Music at McGill and a Master of Music in Composition, Film and Multimedia Music from the Université de Montréal. She has been the recipient of many awards, including the winner of the SOCAN Young Composers National Awards in the vocal category, the Canadian Choral Composition Competition, hosted by Cor Leone, the Ruth Watson Henderson Choral Composition Competition, and the Hong Kong Children's Choir 50th Anniversary Composition Competition. Her choral works are published with Boozy and Hawkes, Cypress Choral Music, and Alliance Music Publishers. Claire Saindon currently scores films, composes choral commissions, and is composer-in-residence for the Montreal Upper Voice Ensemble, Chœur Adlesia.
Hi, my name is Claire Saindon, and I will be talking to you tonight about French-Canadian choral music, very briefly. And when I say French-Canadian choral music, it's very possible that what pops into your mind at first is lager songs or call and response songs or Christmas carols often. And that's okay. That's normal, because in a lot of our choral concerts and choral festivals, in Canada anyway, you have heard a lot of these songs already. To the point that me, as a choral composer, especially when it was first starting off, I remember singing a bunch of English pieces in other languages of these beautiful contemporary pieces and loving the textures and loving the melodies, and then looking at the French Canadian content and going, wait a minute, why is it always the traditional stuff that we do? Where's the cool, funky, contemporary music that is also French Canadian? Does it exist? Does it not exist? It does exist. I just didn't get to hear or perform much of it before. And so it got me thinking as to, well, why are we focusing a lot on the traditional tunes from hundreds of years ago? And why do we see so many choral arrangements of those and not so much the contemporary French Canadian choral pieces out being sung in Canada? I have a theory, which is what I am sharing with you, and which seems to make sense for a lot of us. So first off, let's talk about the traditional music. In the choral community, in the Canadian choral community, there seems to be this effort to bring French Canadian music into the programming, which, as a French Canadian musician, I found that pretty awesome. I love seeing our culture on stage and also the different takes and the different arrangements that come out of it. However, not everybody speaks French in our country. So we have a language barrier problem. And this is normal. If your French class from grade 10 feels like a million years ago and trying to read the text from a choral piece right then and there where vowels create a different kind of vowel when three of them are squished together and you don't remember all the rules of elisions and whatnot, it's super daunting. Singing in any language that is not one you're fluent with, like really fluent, is always stressful. So we've got that difficulty layer right there. It makes it less accessible. So by going with the traditional route, there is something that makes it a little more accessible / kind of evens out the playing field a little more, and that is traditional music in general around the world will have a lot of repetition in it because it is an oral tradition. Oral traditions are meant to be able to be shared widely and easily between different groups, different friends, and as fast as possible. And so you will have a lot of repetition in the structure of the piece. You will have a lot of repetition in the melodic cells of the piece, so the melody is going to repeat itself very often. As far as structure, you'll find also that there will be one melody and a second melody, and then it's those two melodies trading off. So once you know the two melodies, you just need to remember what syllables and text to slap in there, and you've got it. The rhythms often are going to be extremely similar rhythms throughout the piece. I'm generalizing about French Canadian music here too. It might be very different in other traditions where the rhythms are way more complex. But repetition definitely helps with the learning of the piece. That means that even though traditional French Canadian choral arrangement is yes in French, the accessibility of the music because of its repetition makes it better to learn than, say, a contemporary piece where the music will be more complex. And on top of that, you have the language barrier. So this is my little theory I wanted to share. And of course, there's something else that attracts, I think, and then choral directors can confirm or deny this, I think it attracts a lot of choral directors and artistic directors because in our choral body of works, a lot of the pieces are absolutely gorgeous, but slow. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you want your audience to stay intrigued and active throughout the concert, it's good to try to have a variety of different speeds and different textures throughout the concert. And so it is wonderful for a director to go, hey, look at this French Canadian piece, and it's energetic. Yes, I needed a short, energetic piece in this segment of my concert. Let's take this piece. It makes complete sense to me too. And so that means sometimes that the pieces are fast, so that's another level of difficulty that's a little added. But again, because of all the repetition, if you get the chance to practice the stuff, then it becomes easier again to do it. So as an example, I'm just going to throw you in there an excerpt of a piece I wrote, Sur lutte acadienne montréalaise, which doesn't even have French in it, but it's a French-Canadian tradition anyway. It's a mouth reel. So you can just get a flavor of the toe-tapping mood that you would get from such music. So that was a bit of traditional music. On the flip side, what is being written today that isn't the traditional stuff, but it is French-Canadian. It's French-Canadian with the text itself, with the poetry itself, and by the background of the composers writing the choral pieces. So I have a few excerpts for you here of pieces written by some of my colleagues during the past few years. We're going to start with a piece called Les Marins de l'Espace, so the space sailors, and I love this piece. It's fun, it's full of energy, and it is by Louis Desjarlais, and he tends to write pieces that are very evocative and a little shorter than, so you'll get like 2 to 5 minutes max, and his goal is to write music that people get a positive reaction out of. So it's always fun or just really beautiful and engaging music. And so this one, as you can imagine, is it's not space pirates, but space sailors. And it's basically a space shanty instead of a sea shanty. So this is for lower equal voices. And it is about 3 minutes total. I'll play a short excerpt for you here now. So the second excerpt I want to play for you tonight is a piece called Vient le jour, and this is a piece by Robert Ingari. And I will read to you the translation of the first verse. A day comes when life at last is like life, when light and dark gush forth at the same instant from eternity, released by all things ephemeral. It's a beautiful piece. It's for SCTB with solo cello. And basically it's just a piece. It's not only full of hope, it's kind of the moment of we have arrived in life where everything throughout our life, throughout our daily experiences is absolute beauty and a miracle to behold in itself. So again, I'll be playing a short excerpt from Vient le jour. The last piece I wanted to play for you guys, just a segment once again, is by David Desilets, and the piece is called Pour que vienne. And some of you might have heard it at in Newfoundland if you were at Podium at the Canadian Choral Conference. It was sung by the National Youth Choir of Canada. And I remember sitting in the audience, and that's where me personally sitting there and hearing this contemporary piece written by a French Canadian going, that's what I mean. That's the stuff I'm looking for. Yes, okay, it exists. There's current music being written, and that's one of the ones that really brought joy to my heart to just hear this. And again, it's a piece that is also very hopeful. I'll do the same thing. Actually, this one, the original is in English, but he found a French translation of this text. So I will read the English text to you now. Yet if we could but lift our earthward eyes to see and open our dull eyes to hear, then should the wonder of this world draw near and life's innumerable harmonies. That is from Archibald Lampman, pardon me. And so once again, it's SATB. There is a soloist. And once again, Pour que vienne by David Desilets. So after hearing these three excerpts, I'm hoping that it gave you a taste for what you can find. It's just this tiny sliver of what can be found, and these are not necessarily extremely popular composers, though they are starting to be well-known. One of them is actually pretty well-known already. And what's important to know is that these three people, out of a bunch of other composers, are actually quite accessible. And we'd be more than happy to share our music with anybody else who wants to perform it. So throughout the excerpts, I had put contact information. Feel free to email them, feel free to find them on their websites and contact them that way. And they would love to hear from you. And I hope that that gave you a little bit of curiosity to go and find out more about French Canadian choral music. Thank you for listening. The earth isn't round. It's as flat as the screen that told me so. This is the first line of Flat Earth, the translation of the French text of this piece that you will hear, based on a poem written by Paul Rubin, Franco-Ontarian author and poet. And I am proud to present to you a piece that goes and questions some of things we think to be truths, but might not be so. Please enjoy. All right, so let's talk a bit about Flat Earth. So what I'll do is I'll read the poem in English with the author's translation, and then we can go from there. The earth isn't round. It's as flat as the screen that told me so. They peel off my face, they steal my voice, and slip their words through what's left of me. I, shadow of a mirage, deepfake. Troll farm fruit, grinded down to dust in the eyes. Truth? A swirl of starlings, sand of the Sirocco. It's all good, Doc, no need of your vax, anti-vax. I nurture my kids with the sun and love. On my thread, I read that a gang of killer clowns were prowling the woods. But now a doubt's crept in, as you doubt, at this very instant, the hologram of this chamber choir, this echo chamber. Some things are really hard to translate in there. I specifically reached out to Paul Rubin to write a poem for this piece, knowing that the Aeolians were looking for a concert themed on truth. And I had read some of Paul's short stories before, and I knew that he was really good with dark humor, but also with a lot of heart. And when I told him about the thematics, he definitely said, "Oh, I want to go with conspiracy theories. Can I go with conspiracy theories?" I said, "Okay, let's see what comes out of it." And I know some of these subjects can be touchy. I know that some people will believe these things and will argue these things. I know some people will get very angry if anybody brings up these things. We just wanted to present them, some of them as they are, but mostly how they feel. So we're talking about, first off, the first statement is about how the earth isn't round, it's flat. It's a statement. It's a statement a lot of people, more people than I thought would say this day and age, say, and with such conviction. So that is the opening statement of the piece. Earth isn't round, it's flat. And that's why you have that declamatory, La terre n'est pas ronde, right, at the beginning. And from then on, all the other things that are said, are most of them anyway, are scary. So they peel off my face, they steal my voice, and slip their words through what's left of me. So this is part of what deepfake is, which if some of you don't know what deepfake is, I'm not a computer scientist or programmer or anything, so I will try to explain as simply as possible. They will take a video of you, will manage to make your mouth in the video look like it's saying specific words that you never said, but it will look fairly real, and they will be able to take the tone of your voice and have somebody else say words and move around. And basically it's kind of like digital makeup, but with your face. So it's your mask being put on somebody else's face and your voice being used as an instrument. It's kind of scary that has been developed. So that is what deepfake is. And if you look up deep fake and then a political figure, any political figure that is fairly big in this world, you will find some examples of deep fake. It's pretty scary. So if you can't trust your ears and your eyes, what can you trust? So that's already a pretty scary concept. And then when we talk about troll farms, it's all these groups of people that are hired only to sow discord and distrust and to split two opposing factions even more by posting very extreme views to try to polarize people even more. And you would be surprised at how often this happens and how accounts are fake accounts managed by a real person, but they are just posting very either left-wing things, right-wing things, or very religious things or very anti-religious things to try to oppose people more and more in a certain area of the world, especially when it comes close to, say, an election. That is also very scary. So you will feel these ideas through the piece and how there's this underlying anxiety. That is what I was going for, and because a lot of this happens online, I decided to have a little bit of mechanical sound to it. So we'll just hear the introduction here. After the La Terre n'est pas ronde line, you'll hear, it's kind of like perpetual motion feeling. Partly because a lot of this stuff happens on the internet and digital world and everything being very, not real. And also partially because a lot of our reactions to these things are automatic. For example, we'll get a lot of fake news thrown to us without even realizing it's fake and just not even think about it twice, either reshare it because it's funny or because it's extreme. An example that I fell for was the dolphins in the Viennese canals. I had no idea that it wasn't true. I was just like, oh, that's cool, and moved on. But this can happen with more serious topics too. So I find we sometimes have a very robotic, mechanical reaction without actually thinking about what we're doing. So this is my mechanical texture, let's say. I'm going to play that now. Here we go. You'll also notice in there's it's hard sometimes to try to find syllables for more mechanical minimalist textures, and I kind of went for the nose just because the N is a little less abrasive, but also because it's a lot of fun to take just the word no. What am I saying no to here? That is up for you, the listener, to decide what the choir is saying no to, because I don't know exactly. After that, something I would like to bring your attention to. From then on, I basically kind of reacted artistically to what Paul had written in the text. So one that I'll bring your attention to is in the text, "Eye shadow of a mirage." So the word mirage was kind of evocative for me. So what I did is I had my melody in the sopranos happening, and then what I did is I did a mirror image of the melody in the altos. So for those of you who are less familiar with how with mirror images in music, what happens is if I go higher, then the mirror image goes lower. And so you have the alto going lower and lower and wrapping around that shape, the opposite shape that the sopranos are doing. So we're just going to listen to that little clip for a few moments. Here we go. That's a good little example you hear there. Other things that I did, there's a really cool image that Paul absolutely loved, and I wasn't familiar with it, but swirls of starlings. Have you ever seen a cloud and realize as it moves around very nebulously that it's not a cloud, but it's actually just a huge amount of birds flying around. And he also compares it to the sand of the Sirocco, which is a very sandy wind, something I've never seen. And he's talking about how truth can sometimes seem that way, very nebulous, just a bunch of small grains all put together. It's not just one heavy, tangible thing. So I've imitated that kind of feeling with a kind of swirling melody going around with triplets, basically. So we'll just listen to that swirling right here. One very interesting bit was actually a fake news that I'd completely forgotten about already. It just goes to show sometimes some things that really scare some of us, or confuse some of us at least, and then it comes and goes and we forget about it. It was about the killer clowns. I think this was in 2018. Some of you might have seen this, read stuff about this, some of you not, but there was this rumor that was started, I don't know where, that there were people dressing up as clowns and going around and terrifying others, and potentially actually being a gang of people trying to kill others. It was fake, and I guess some people piggybacked on that potentially and tried to scare others. I do not know how this concluded, but that's where you hear the choir screaming in the end, is that the tension is mounting of I've seen, where was the translation here, on my threads, on my Facebook feed, basically. I read that a gang of killer clowns were prowling in the woods. So that's what we're going to listen to right now. That's the killer clowns. And the last bit where the mood completely changes, we've done our anxious recounting of all things. I didn't mention everything, but you get the idea. And towards the end, what I really like that Paul did is that he kind of does a little wink to the audience. And this is where the translation is a little hard to really nail down. It is that he then says, now I wonder if, I'm paraphrasing, now I wonder if you now have a doubt of the veracity of what's being said, / I have a doubt, you might have a doubt about the realisticness of this choir in front of you that is singing, this chamber choir. Is it hologram? Are you sure that it's real? And then also in French, there's a chœur de chambre is choir, chamber choir. And then he follows the chambre with chambre d'écho, which means echo chamber, which we hear about all the time with all the polarizing and opposing ideas and people getting more extreme in all kinds of directions. What we didn't know when we wrote this piece, this was pre-COVID. So we kind of laughed at the idea that, well, now it's a virtual concert. Does this chamber choir really exist? Those of you who know the Aeolians, you know it exists, but it's kind of strange to have this piece being premiered online. So I hope that this has been an interesting piece for you to discover, and I hope it's going to be performed more and more in the following years and months and weeks as soon as we get the score out there for everybody to enjoy. So thank you very much for listening to it, and enjoy the rest of the concert.
The first time you listen to Robin Salkeld's arrangement of Hymn of Axiom by pop star Vienna Tang, you might think it's a normal choir hymn. But as the text unfolds, you realize the speaker isn't human or a divine being. It's a database. The song addresses both moral dilemma and the pros and cons of surveillance that, through companies like marketing data firm Axiom, have become a regular part of our online lives, for better or for worse. Here are a few key lines from the text to ignite your imagination. Somebody hears you. You know that inside. Here, you're known.
Leave your life open. You don't have to hide. Let our formulas find your soul. Now, we possess you. You'll own that in time. Is that wrong? Isn't that what you want? Amen.
Carmen Braden is an emerging force in the world of new music, hailing proudly from Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. According to MusicWorks, as a performer, Carmen is growing into the role of acoustic ambassador of the Canadian subarctic. She has played intimate theaters and main stage folk festivals. Her contemporary classical compositions are nationally recognized, with commissions and performances by world-class ensembles and performers including the Toronto Symphony Orchestra, James Ennis, and the Canadian Chamber Choir. She released her album, Songs of an Invisible Summer Stars, in 2019. She won the Western Canadian Music Award for Classical Composer of the Year and was also nominated for Classical Artist of the Year in 2019 and was nominated for a 2017 WCMA for Classical Composition of the Year. Her compositions have been described as a portrait, but also a release between life and surroundings. As an educator, Carmen regularly gives workshops, individual instruction, guest lectures, and collaboration facilitation ranging from elementary to university graduate level.
Hi, my name is Carmen Braden, and as a composer and a songwriter, I've often, actually almost all the time, made my own lyrics, made my own text for choirs when I've written for them, and it's something that I start with every time. So what I'm going to talk about right now is how do I take those words, that text, and bring it to the music. And the first thing I do is, after I've written it, which happens in a bunch of different ways, I look at it almost like a bit of like a poetic analysis. If I know it's going to be written for a certain kind of choir or have a certain length of time that it's going to take to unfold, those are great things that I have to start with. And then I start looking at the words themselves. And two major things is what I look for. What the word means and how the word sounds. And for me, the some of the magic happens when those two worlds can synchronize. So I'll look through the text and I'll look for words that sound beautiful, even if they may not be the most important words. Then I'll look for those words that in the context of the writing stand out as something that need to be heard, need to be said, need to be highlighted somehow. And I'll just circle those, or highlight them, or underline them, or use a crayon, or a Sharpie, or a magic marker, whatever's around. I'll look for patterns. I'll look for rhymes if there are one, alliteration. I'll look for how words start and how words end. Knowing that when you write for choir, sometimes there's more successful ways to end notes and start notes than others. Aligning things like S's all together, it can be a nightmare. And so you kind of want to try to plan those moments carefully. The text can often lead me to the music itself, in the shape of the vowels, kind of the cadence of it as I speak it, or as I try and just sing it on a really neutral kind of tone. And those sounds of the words are often what I'll use to shape a phrase. So if I know there's a certain word that I want to hold a vowel on or have a kind of a shape on, I'll have to find those and kind of do a bit of a plan. I'll often try and pick a word that does something special. I'll find something where it's such a special word or meaning or even a sound of the word that doesn't really happen anywhere else. And I'll think about that being a special musical moment where I'll want to make it, maybe it's the highest note, or maybe it's the lowest note, maybe it's the biggest volume or the softest one, and that'll make it come out. Maybe it's where the fullest texture is and everybody's singing it, or maybe it's where it's been left alone and there's just one part that has that one word. So there's many different compositional ways you can kind of make a word or a text come to the foreground. And some of those are things. So range, repetition, or the opposite of repetition, singularity. Length is another one. In my piece, and I'll talk about this a little later, I use holding on a note, staying on it for a long time, to bring it forward, kind of like putting a pause in a sentence. It makes you stop and think, and then you can keep going. But that moment will bring it forward in people's ears and in their awareness of the text. If there's really fun consonants, I'll want to play with those, especially if they have meanings in the words. I set a number of texts. Some were mine, some were other people's. Some I sourced from scientific material from for a piece I wrote all about ice. And so I was thinking about all the different kinds of ice there are, and then all of these different sounds that come out of the singers, mostly to do with consonants. And I was trying to find those and really kind of hone in on the sounds of the words themselves, the t and the k and the f and the sh, all these different ways you could kind of make these exciting sounds and match those to texts. And there was one piece where I slowed down the word. I think my favorite word was triangle, and I was trying to figure out, okay, the word triangle, if you got to sing it, triangle. It's pretty awkward, but I wanted to really hone in on that awkwardness and find all the different parts of it. So there's the ch, there's the you can pitch on the and then you actually open up to ah, but it's a diphthong. It's got those like two vowels combined. Try, and then it actually goes to another vowel. Yeah. And then it actually goes to the sound. And then you go to the ol sound. So I think there's like something like 6 or 7 or 8 actual different sounds you can play with in just the word triangle. So I did that for one piece where I was really zooming in on like a microscope on the words. And the text was about that too. It was about these molecular ideas of the ice and how the ice was forming. So I took that idea of the text itself, the actual meaning, and brought it into how I was treating the text. I'm also a big fan of just things that are natural for the voice to sing. My work as a songwriter has taught me and is teaching me every day that I'm working on shaping a melody, is how can you get something across in the simplest and the most beautiful way possible. And sometimes this means paring things down. Sometimes it means being really steady. Other times it means repeating and amplifying things. But I love a melody and I love a bass line, and I love when those things move together. And choral writing is a place where you can do just that. And my work for the choir does that. It takes this single melody that gets developed and a bass line idea, and I think it's quite singable. It's kind of not exactly sure if it's going to be like pop 40 toe tapping, but it gets in my head, and so sometimes it has maybe nothing to do with all those things I just said, and it's just the beautiful way that I would sing it, and something that has a real kind of freedom to it and just a connection to melody. Never mind chord progressions or harmony or those things. It's just how the voice can sail it through. Starting it, I often speak the text, and then I'll kind of break it up into smaller sections and find those moments of pauses. How do I shape it in time? Repetition. Is it my own text? Can I change things? Can I repeat things? It's a wide world, and I think many people who want to try their hand at choral writing or setting a text would do really well to try to write their own, even if it's something really simple, and explore some of those different ideas of how many ways can you look at one piece of text and say it in many different ways. And musically, I think there's the best lessons I've learned have been coming down to the simplest of ideas and just really taking a good look at them and appreciating them for what they are, and for the endless possibilities that one kind of small seed idea or one small word or phrase, and how many different ways that can happen. So thanks for letting me ramble on, and I hope you enjoy my piece. Okay, now we get to hear it, and I'll try and share some thoughts as we go through. Oh yeah, so it's for treble choir, single instrument in the bottom. I did that so that that single instrument, that bass line, could actually be any kind of low bass instrument. Winds like clarinet, bass clarinet, saxophone, bassoon would be cool. Strings, low strings, cello, bass, even like electric bass would be funky. So in this case, we're just keeping it simple, octaves on the piano. So here's my simple melody right off the start. This this is just one of those moments where it's just a melody that just has this quality of joy. So I'm talking in this piece about how you know something. And when I wrote this piece, it was about my daughter, and she was really young. She was 2, and she was looking at under 2. She was looking at a new person that we'd met, and we were swimming. And so she's just learning to talk. She says, "Aviva, swimming." I was like, "Yeah, Aviva's swimming." Then we saw Aviva later at a restaurant, and it was like, "That's also Aviva? What?" So this idea of like, it was her first impression. That is what she knows. This truth of, this is Aviva, she's swimming. But now she has to realize Aviva can do all these different things and be all these different places. Aviva had these amazing earrings. And I was thinking of all the different things that people do. This kind of trying to get at a universality idea, but also just something really, really, really individual. So yeah, Aviva swims, Aviva waits, Aviva cries. And then I remember looking at my daughter and just being amazed at, I could see her learning about change and expectation and understanding, and how she was having to kind of become more flexible with every time something changed. This idea of the mold that is being gently broken with each new meeting. And I think even as adults, like going back and seeing new people or seeing old friends, and then you have to see them again, or haven't seen them for a long time, and they're different people, and now we have to relearn who all those people were and who is that person. To me, my knowledge of that person changes. So that idea of my truth about that person changes. Here's where I'm elongating those notes. How do you know Aviva? 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 So I was stretching each of those ones to put the emphasis on a bit of a different part of the phrase. Super nerdy music word is the agogic accent. Emphasizing something through length. I was also just kind of listening to a lot of kind of kids music, which is not simplistic, but it's simple and it's beautiful. So I was keeping these ideas of this core of a melody, and then changing that a bit. So here we got this nice build of harmony, the layering of the text here. There's a shift of harmony there that was pretty deliberate. Just breaking it a bit. Now the piano has a melody. There's a compositional trick of just like reorganizing the furniture. They sound so good. Oh, wow. So, just to wrap up, I really like this piece I wrote, and I love the choir's performance. I think they sound fantastic. I like this idea of truth and all the different ways that you've heard truth in this concert and others. And I think it's a wonderful thing to be examining at this time, is how we know things and how we understand things and how we believe things. And I think at its core, my piece was trying to get at a sense of finding the simple beauty of a truth when you know it.
Finding music isn't hard. It's in everyday living. You'll find it in every moment, whether it's the rain hitting the asphalt, the waves hitting the shore, it's voices and nature, and you'll even find it in silence. The text of our next piece really speaks to that. Somewhere the original harmony must exist, hidden somewhere in the vast wilds, in Earth's mighty firmament, in the far reaches of the swirling galaxies, in sunshine, in a little flower, in a song of the forest, the music of a mother's voice, or in teardrops. Somewhere immortality endures, and the original harmony will be found. How else could it have been formed? In human hearts. Music.